Let's do this one. Tim Duncan. Carl wanted this one. I think Tim Duncan versus Kevin Garnett. Between those two guys, if we took them at their absolute best, who would you take? I'm going with Tim Duncan.
I'm going with Tim Duncan too.
Yeah, I really, and Kevin Garnett, obviously at his best, this is a guy who's an elite defensive player or whatever the case may be. But I really think it's tough with Tim Duncan because I can't imagine a guy he embodies everything that you want out of like a superstar player. He outside of the boring stuff where people don't want to watch him play. This is a guy who played within the team system his whole career, dominated his whole career. Elite defensive player, elite passer. He's a better passer than Kevin Garnett. He may not have the break you down skills like Kevin Garnett had, but I just think it's tough to compete with all of that winning that he did. You know what I'm saying?
But because we mentioned defense. Are you sure that Tim Duncan is a better defensive player than Kevin Garnett?
I'm 100% sure.
Yes.
I don't know, because obviously Kevin Garnett has a defensive player of the year in 2008. Then he also was a 9-time all defensive player, 9-time first team all defensive player.
Michael Jordan has more defensive player of the years than Kobe.
Oh no, okay.
Marc Gasol has one and LeBron doesn't.
Oh, damn. Okay, you got me.
But Kevin Garnett was a defensive presence, but I don't think as much as Tim Duncan was.
Okay, that's fair. You got me. I ain't gonna lie, you set me up with that one. But me personally, okay, you can say it's just those teams that they like each other played on has a lot to do with that to me. Like I feel like Tim Duncan wouldn't become the same player if he didn't have the great coach and Greg Popovich. Not saying he wasn't still going to be great, but I think Greg Popovich is probably the greatest coach of all time. In my opinion, he is.
Yeah.
So I feel like if Kevin Garnett had that, he had Doc Rivers, which, and we've said our things about Doc Rivers. He's still a good coach though. But I'm just saying, Greg Popovich is a way better coach. So I felt like that team. He had Tony Parker, basically his whole career. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. At one point, he had Kawhi. Like Kevin Garnett only had you saw once he got a couple stars on this team, he got a Marine. So.
Let me ask you a question though, and this is taking nothing away from the Spurs. Some guys we say they have a great team. That team was great. Those guys were great because of how well they played off of each other. I don't think the Spurs. I don't think the Spurs were like
that system was kind of
They were so it's like they're really like more like the Warriors than we think. The perception on the Warriors outside of the Kevin Durant years, the perception on them is that they're good just because they're that much more talented. I don't agree. I think 2016 Warriors were not that much more talented than a lot of other teams that were in the league. They just ran a really successful system and played so well off of each other that they all looked great. They just played basketball that well. We talked about why you said it, mentioned it, why the Warriors been able to play so well, even without Kevin Durant or whatever the case may be. You kind of referenced 2019 finals when guys were out. Their system is devastating. So I would with that Spurs team, that's what happens when you build chemistry with guys. And that's nothing against Kevin Garnett, but
do the draft too.
Do the draft. Like there's not a major. I mean, there are guys that come and get, but this is all there. That core is all through the draft. You know what I'm saying?
And I don't want to say there's nothing wrong with the team that like Tim Duncan had or anything, because obviously it was organic and they went through the draft and no like big free agents were picked up. So it's like completely organic dynasty. So it's nothing really wrong with that at all. But when they're comparing it to Kevin Garnett's team, early team with the Timberwolves, the best player he had was Isaiah Ryder, who was a good player, but outside of that, like he really didn't have a lot to compete with. And then he would have to face the Lakers in their prime with Kobe and Shaq in the playoffs. He wasn't gonna beat them. Like that was part of like the early failures that he had because he had to face Kobe and Shaq. He was not going to beat them.
Now to the point about KG. Now we kind of talked about him not having the advantage that Tim Duncan had. I would argue that Kevin Garnett was on more talented teams than Kevin Garnett or than Tim Duncan.
Okay, than Tim Duncan.
Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo are more.
But that was just one. I don't know about it.
No, Blake, you're proving my point. They won one championship, and when Kevin Garnett had that talent, how many times did they lose after that?
When Kevin Garnett had that talent,
I see what you're saying.
Oh, and guess what? I'm gonna actually go with your point. The Spurs beat the Heat. Celtics didn't. If you really,
exactly,
that can actually go with the point.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, so the thing about Kevin Garnett not having as much talent, I think in his skill peak, he didn't have as much talent. But when we did see Kevin Garnett still with, having all-star seasons with that Celtics team, they didn't, there was one title, but we walk away from that Celtics. I almost called him a dynasty on accident. We walk away from that.
You better chill out.
We walked away. What's the number one thing we think about that 2008 Celtics team?
They should have won more.
That's it.
They milked that ring.
They milked it. Still milking it.
They should have. Due to the magnificent performance of Kobe was able to get one, but they probably should have won both of them championships at least against the Lakers. Probably.
Yeah,
they were the more talented team.
Then there's even a disappointment before they even get to the finals. Like I think the year between Orlando had edged them out. I forget what happened the year. I forget who Orlando.
No, Orlando didn't edge them out. Orlando beat LeBron in Eastern Conference Finals. I think
LeBron beat them in the second round, didn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. So so that's a less stat Cavs. Okay. Yeah. But it's tough because the perception on Kevin Garnett is he's more skilled, and I would. Skill.
I don't think he's more skilled. He's more skilled.
Okay, then.
Me personally, I don't think he's more skilled. My argument was this just comes from me. He was better to watch for me with my eyes. Yeah. I enjoyed watching Kevin Garnett play more than Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, he played a beautiful game, but sometimes it was just too methodical and just too technical for me.
Yeah, it was
definitely like great skill and everything. It was just too boring at times.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I like to see people dunk on somebody. I don't want to see Tim Duncan do a spin move and a jump hook. I don't.
He did that to what? 4 championships?
5. Actually.
5. Man, his career. He's without a doubt a top 10 player. Like there's also that. Like I don't think Kevin Garnett's a top 10 player. I don't even know if he's top 15. Tim Duncan is 100% a top 10 player.
Yeah,
top 15. Do you even think he was the best player on his team?
Yeah.
Was Paul Pierce better? Paul Pierce won the Finals MVP. I think when he.
Yeah,
you can debate that actually.
He's probably the best player on that team.
Yeah, they played well together, but I would definitely say Pierce was. I mean, Pierce did have the MVP. So
my frustration is younger kids gonna see they would see Ray Allen just shoot, and we was a part of the younger kids actually.
Yeah,
they would just see him shoot threes and think he was just a catch and shoot player. Ray Allen, if it was like probably prior to that, if it was like 7 to 8 years ago, he could have easily been the best player on that team.
Oh yeah,
ease. That's why. Yeah. So sometimes that's why you got to give props to the dude that to the players that sacrifice so much just to win a ring because he completely reinvented his game.
Have we ever seen a star player sacrifice as much as he did to kind of just become like a corner specialist or a 3-point shooting specialist?
Like he made kids think growing up that watched him play that he was just a shooter. I swear I thought that until I saw he got game.
Yeah. He's like, oh, this man